Now on Canton Confidential. Tonight, Canton in the national spotlight. The Karen Reed murder case, now the focus of a 2-hour network special.
The stakes are as high as they get for Karen Reed.
She's put my family through hell to save herself.
New details about that night and new interviews with the people who lived it.
I didn't think I hit him, but could I have clipped him?
And on Canton Confidential, details you won't see on Dateline.
Just when you think you know the answer, you don't.
She was tried once, but if Massachusetts gets its way, she'll be tried again. A special edition of Canton Confidential, the Karen Reed murder trial, starts right now.
And as we come on the air tonight, another major development in the fallout of the Karen Reed murder trial. Good evening. Welcome back to a special edition of Canton Confidential. I'm J.C. Monahan.
And I'm Corey Smith. The Massachusetts State Police confirms Detective Lieutenant Brian Tully has been removed from his position within the Norfolk County DA's office. Lieutenant Tully was the unit commander of the State Police Detective Unit. He was a supervisor of Trooper Michael Proctor, who led the investigation into John O'Keefe's murder. In a statement from MSP, Tully has been moved to a temporary assignment in the Division of Investigative Services amid an ongoing internal affairs investigation.
And this is just one of several headlines related to the case that we have seen this week alone. Others include a court filing to possibly uncover new evidence, arguments filed with the Commonwealth's highest court, the formal backing of Reed's appeal by the ACLU, and how much it cost taxpayers for state police to secure that first trial.
The spectacle outside the Norfolk Superior Courthouse not coming cheap. Records the NBC 10 investigators obtained from Massachusetts State Police showing they spent more than $250,000 in payroll to secure the scene and maintain a court-imposed buffer zone. The vast majority of trooper hours clocked in as overtime shifts. State Police also spent another $7,000 for 6 different employees to testify.
I don't recall that.
Including a little more than $1,000 for Trooper Michael Proctor to prep and read aloud from the stand the disparaging text messages he wrote about defendant Karen Reed.
She's a whack job.
The agency also paid 4 employees from the crime lab a combined $2,000 to describe forensic evidence, like apparent fragments of tail light found in John O'Keefe's clothing.
I just received the debris.
We also received records from the Norfolk DA's office showing they spent roughly $44,000 for outside experts to fly to Massachusetts and testify about things like DNA analysis they performed on Reed's Lexus SUV.
When comparing the John O'Keefe profile.
And don't forget about the state employees who worked every day of the trial that stretched on more than 2 months.
In particular, you'll hear testimony.
Lead prosecutor Adam Lally has a salary of $145,000, and Judge Beverly Cannoni, who makes more than $200,000. How different is this second trial going to look?
I think is going to be still pretty long, but I don't think it's going to be as long.
Criminal defense attorney Morgietta de Riziere says while taxpayers will be paying $250 per hour to the special prosecutor hired to take the lead on the case, the witness list and legal arguments should be much more condensed.
A fuller story from the beginning, more streamlined, more storytelling, and I think that might also reduce some of the costs.
A big question is how many people will show up outside the courthouse for the second trial and how much security will be needed. The first trial took place in the heat of the summer and saw those huge crowds. Second trial will be taking place in the heart of the New England winter. In Dedham, Ryan Kath, NBC 10 Investigators.
Before the retrial in January begins, the Supreme Judicial Court will hear arguments regarding Reed's appeal to get 2 charges dismissed, and that hearing is next month.
Ahead of those arguments, the American Civil Liberties Union of Massachusetts is weighing in on the issue. The organization filed an amicus brief in support of Reed's appeal, arguing that Judge Cannoni's decision to declare a mistrial was, quote, hasty. That brief says she made a mistake by refusing to conduct a post-verdict evidentiary hearing after the defense said multiple jurors reported they had agreed to acquit Karen Reed of 2 of the 3 counts. It goes on to say retrying Reed on those charges would violate the prohibition against double jeopardy. And joining us in studio to talk about that filing is legal director for the ACLU of Massachusetts, Jesse Rossman. Did I summarize the argument there in an accurate way?
I guess not to be too lawyerly,
okay.
but I would give
no, by all means, be lawyerly.
So, the ACLU filed this amicus brief on behalf of protecting the rights of all criminal defendants. We know we're talking about one of the foundational constitutional protections we have, which is the protection against double jeopardy. And what we argued in our amicus brief is that here, what we're asking the SJC, or Supreme Judicial Court, which our state Supreme Court, to do, is to send it back to the trial court to conduct that evidentiary hearing to determine what the jury actually concluded in their deliberations.
Why do you feel that that was a mistake, that she didn't do that the first time?
Well, look, as we talked about in our brief, there are options for judges to conduct a polling of the jury before declaring a mistrial. That's allowed under the criminal procedure, and we cited examples where that has happened both in Massachusetts, in federal courts, and in other states. And that didn't happen here. But the good news is there's also another vehicle to address when there are viable questions about what the outcome of a jury deliberation was. And that's what's happened here. And as we talk about in our brief, there have been examples in Massachusetts trial courts where there are questions about a jury verdict. You can conduct an evidentiary hearing post-verdict, and that's what we're asking the Supreme Judicial Court to send back to the trial court to happen.
Just in a nutshell, because appeals happen all the time, what was it about the Karen Reed appeal that she is making that caught the attention of the ACLU?
What's at the heart of this appeal is one of the oldest and most foundational constitutional protections that we have, which is that protection against double jeopardy. And at its core, what that protection says is that outside of extreme circumstances, the Commonwealth can't use the benefits of its resources and its power to subject a criminal defendant to multiple trials on the same charges. The ACLU became involved here on behalf of all criminal defendants to make sure that when there are viable questions about the outcome of jury deliberations, that gets sent back for a post-evidentiary hearing so that we can be sure what the jury actually decided in this case.
All right. Well, thank you so much for helping us digest this amicus brief as we continue to cover this trial. Jesse Rossman with the ACLU of Massachusetts.
Thank you.
All right, still ahead on Canton Confidential, Michael Coyne, Sue O'Connell, both going to be here to talk about the new case the prosecution is putting together.
Plus, my interview with Dateline's Andrea Canning. Here's a preview of tonight's show.
I said, could I have hit him? Did I hit him?
How could that have been? I mean, you dropped him off at the house.
I don't know what else could have been. It was howling wind. I had YouTube blasting on the stereo, and I thought, did he somehow try to flag me down, which was the reaction I was hoping to garner as I slowly pulled away from the house? Did he come out and maybe trip or bend over to pick up his cell phone, and I ran over his foot, and then he passed out drunk? I mean, I didn't think I hit him, but could I have clipped him?
Questions surrounding John O'Keefe's murder and the high-profile trial of Karen Reed consumed the lives of so many people in and around Canton for nearly 2 years now. And tonight, it hits the national stage in a 2-hour Dateline special. I got the chance to speak with Andrea Canning, longtime correspondent and host of the show, and here is part of our conversation. Andrea, thank you so much for joining us. We have so many questions for you. You've been at Dateline for 12 years. Can you give me a little insight as to what made the Karen Reed murder trial of interest to you and to Dateline?
Well, I think it started out as one of those stories that appeared to be, maybe Karen was drinking and driving and accidentally, backed into John. And then it takes this sharp right turn and provides the ultimate twist when they start saying it's a cover-up, that they're accusing other people of causing this death. And so it's one of those cases with all these twists and turns where just when you think you know the answer, you don't.
There is a lot to cover. What did you find the most intriguing?
I certainly found it intriguing listening to Karen in her own words. Dennis Murphy did that interview with Karen. That was fascinating to have her take you through the night from beginning to end, and then how things went so wrong in the days after John's death. I mean, to live that with her and to hear her take you moment by moment in those days, it is absolutely fascinating.
As you're combing through all of this and putting it together, was there just as much interest? Because I think some of us here who have been following it really closely are sort of astonished that this has garnered national attention and even beyond.
I think this is just one of those cases that it's like everyone has a different opinion about what happened or how they interpret the clues or, what someone Googled on their phone at a certain time, what that means. It's like everything means something different to everyone. It's so hard to kind of cut through all of the material and really have a solid answer about what actually happened.
Did you find getting these interviews were easy? Did it take a lot of persuasion? Because, for example, the O'Keefe family, some members have come out and spoken here and there, and same with Karen Reed, but you really had access to them.
I know that it was definitely a challenge every step of the way, getting people to talk. We did get a family member named Beth. She was excellent. She took us through beginning to end and was so raw and real about the experience that the family has had. To hear it through their lens about how they've been treated. They felt vilified at times when it's their loved one who died. So it's a very strange twist with how this family feels that they have been treated. And it's really because they don't buy the cover-up. Mm-hmm. So then there's anger at them for not buying the cover-up. So it's a very complicated, complex case, as you know.
The Night of the Nor'easter airs tonight at 9 o'clock right here on NBC 10 Boston. And joining us back at the table tonight is legal analyst Michael Coyne, along with our courtroom insider Sue O'Connell. All right, let's start with some of the legal aspects of this, because we did see a clip, and we just talked about the fact that Karen Reed did speak. This was before the first trial, in depth, in length at some point. Now that we're through the first trial, we're heading possibly into the second trial. Should she be concerned legally about what she has gone on record as saying, because she didn't take the stand in the first trial? Yes,
she should. I'm surprised that those videos weren't used at the earlier trial. I would expect that Attorney Brennan will take a hard look at them and maybe use one or if not more of the interviews she has made with the media. She tells a compelling story as to what she thinks happened, and that's pretty consistent with what the government thinks happened here.
So today, the new prosecutor, speaking of Brennan, filed a request for phone records, footage of an interview with Karen Reed's dad that he did with another local news station. Earlier this week, they moved to have more data recovered from Reed's SUV. Does this tell you anything about how this second trial, if it gets there, is going to go?
Well, it's going to be a different trial. They're going to dig a little deeper on some of the items of evidence. I expect that what they're going to do is streamline it and focus on the key parts of this case: the drinking, the driving, the deadly consequences. The fact is that the snowstorm caused all sorts of problems with the collection of evidence, but it doesn't change the government's basic narrative that this was really pretty simple, driving under the influence with horrible consequences.
And yet, Sue, we talk about how you were in that courtroom almost every day, and you, along with many others, had a hard time sort of following the Assistant District Attorney Adam Lally's thought process, storytelling in that first trial. We're now getting little insights as to what the story might look like in the second trial. Does it look to you dramatically different, or are we going to...
I think we already have a narrative, which we didn't necessarily have during the Lally presentation. To Michael's point, they're looking at evidence or seeking evidence. We don't know if the car data actually exists or not. They say in their filing it may help them, it may hurt them. They don't know, but they're seeking that. We were told that was it. There was no more. And the idea that they're going to interview people who were around Karen that were not interviewed the first time, her family, her brother, her dad, her mom, that says he's focusing on things that weren't covered. I imagine, I'm guessing here, but they have feedback about what didn't work. The jurors did express interest in some things and interest in others. I can imagine that they're going to cut a whole bunch of things away that didn't work for them the first time to really streamline this process.
Oh, we'd have to, right? I mean, how many hundreds of pieces of evidence were in that first
And to that
trial?
point, this request to get more data from the SUV, given how the defense attorneys went after the collection of evidence and data in the first trial, if something new comes to light, what's stopping a juror from thinking, well, where was this during the first trial? Why should I believe it now if I maybe didn't believe it in the first one?
Well, don't we all think that the government's case, the weakest point was the connection between the vehicle hitting him if it hit him at all, and his death. And I think that's what we're looking at now, is that we're taking a much harder look. If the evidence doesn't support that the vehicle hit him at the end of the day after this level of analysis, then the government has to realize that obtaining a conviction is going to be almost impossible.
And that vehicle could have an enormous amount of information. You know, this is a case that I worked on a local case around the key assist times it goes and when you hit a brake and when you touch the wheel. So if it's there, it could mean something.
All right. Don't go anywhere. No. Still need you. We know numerous true crime podcasts, YouTube shows have highlighted the Karen Read case this year, but why? What makes this case stand out? And why do complete strangers care?
We took those questions to a local professor and true crime expert. Their answer when Canton Confidential returns.
Welcome back to Canton Confidential. Whether it's shows like Dateline or podcasts like Serial or the countless HBO documentaries out there, true crime has become one of the most popular genres in nearly every medium. Again, TV shows, books, podcasts, you name it, it's probably a true crime genre.
A lot of us, me, friends, everything. The stories are told are often, however, if you think about it, these are crime stories. So they are gruesome, they are tragic, and they focus on the darkest days of people that the audience doesn't even know they are strangers. Our Eli Rosenberg joins us live with the allure of how true crime, and particularly this local murder investigation, fits into that genre. Eli?
And JC and Corey, we're about 90 minutes from that Dateline special. And you know those here in Boston and beyond are really going to be glued to it. So tonight we are talking with experts about what it is about this particular case, this investigation, this trial that really resonates and attracts so much interest.
All eyes focused on the spectacle outside a Massachusetts courthouse.
This was next level.
It has been must-see TV for years. The murder investigation into the death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe. But why?
As Mark Twain once said, we are all like the moon. We have a dark side that you just don't see. Through history, people have been fascinated with crime stories.
Guys, you have to move. You have to move back.
And it's that draw that has so many focusing on Karen Read. Read is accused of hitting O'Keefe with her SUV during a snowy night in late January 2022. Her arrest, trial.
I'm declaring a mistrial in this case.
And subsequent mistrial, drawing international attention and dividing the town of Canton.
The thing about true crime is that it allows us to kind of get up close and personal to trauma and to sort of the unimaginable.
And it was that up close and personal that played out literally. From people showing up at the Dedham courthouse seemingly every day during the 9-week trial, to those watching from home, detailing every move on social media.
So it hovers in this strange space. It is tapping into the abject, the what we don't want to experience in real life. It's taking us to that strange place.
And it's important to know when we're talking about true crime, we are talking about real people here, people that continue to struggle like the O'Keefe family. Meanwhile, this story is far from over. From that Supreme Judicial Court hearing in early November to the second trial, still slated for late January 2025. I'm Eli Rosenberg. Back to you.
All right, Eli, thank you very much.
And when we come back, a look at what's next for the O'Keefe family and Karen Read. Welcome back. Before we go, November 6th is the date for the SJC hearing. So, Michael, your legal opinion, what should we expect, do you think?
The court will allow all 3 charges to stand. I don't see double jeopardy as barring the retrial. I do think they'll caution that in the future, when you're giving the Tui Rodriguez charge with respect to the mistrial, that the court should inquire of the jury if they were able to reach unanimity on any of the charges before dismissing the jury.
All right, Sue, like you, so many people that are going to be watching tonight know this case, this trial, backwards and forwards. But with that said, though, what do you hope people take away from this episode of Dateline?
So, having been with the Dateline folks for 40 days and 40 nights covering the case, they're so professional, they're so fair, and we watched them for over 30 years. I'm hoping that, if you're not like completely connected to the case, like related to the people involved, you try and watch this with an open mind, right? And just let Dateline tell you the story based on the facts that they garnered. They don't have a dog in this fight. They don't have a point of view on this. They're just going to use their storytelling skills along with the facts that they have figured out and present it. And, I think in this really volatile, divided time we're in right now, something you may think is true may end up not being true. But just make it a practice to open your mind, hear what they have to say, and see if that changes anywhere that you are. Because I think, everyone wants justice in this, right?
Right.
Everyone feels badly that John O'Keefe is dead, right? So let's start where we all share and have this common concern and see if we can find some place in the middle here.
And as a huge Dateline fan, it's going to be surreal to see our own backyard out there. Very strange.
We are very much looking forward to it. Michael, Sue, thank you very much. And thank you for joining us for tonight's special edition of Canton Confidential. I'm Corey Smith.
I'm JC Monahan. Stick around. Dateline's 2-hour episode, The Night of the Nor'easter, is coming up right here at 9 o'clock.